got barbecue back there, and you didn't invite me. Hurt my feelings.
Welcome back to another episode of DT Weekly for the 276th time. We are here tonight to take a look back and do a little bit of a 2024 rookie redo. Mitch, you and I kind of talked behind the scenes. We did an overall similar concept a couple months back before we split off onto two separate channels. So we wanted to put another episode out. And this time Dan is joining us. I have to assume it was during a Cowboys game that Dan was not able to join. But like I said, we're going through looking at the 2024 class, putting together our top 12 based on what we know up to this point and expectations moving forward. The way we're going to be looking at this, 12-team Superflex PPR, 0.75 tight end premium. And just for a frame of reference, if you go in and we just pulled some data from last year, again, Superflex rookie drafts. At 101, it was Caleb Williams. Marvin Harrison was at 102. Jayden Daniels, 103. Malik Nabers, 104. Drake Maye, 105. At 106 was Odunze. JJ McCarthy, 107. Brock Bowers, 108. Xavier Worthy, 109. Brian Thomas, 110. Jonathan Brooks, 111. And Bo Nix, 112. And then we have some honorary mentions that we thought should be included in tonight's discussion, but it got a little ugly, at least through 1 year. Of course, there's so many things that could change. We're going to see ups and downs, ebbs and flows, but we're going to get right into it. And Dan, we're going to start with you at the 101. So we're redrafting again the 2024 rookies, 12-team Superflex, 0.75 tight end premium, PPR otherwise. How would you be looking at this 101, and does it vary from the draft order that we had previously mentioned?
Yeah, this is a good exercise in looking back and looking forward. And the guy I would take number 1 tonight, I had number 5 last year. But man, he's been my boy. And just looking at roster construction, I love my rosters with him. I could figure out any other position without him. Give me my guy. And the irony today, too, in the mail was my Tops Now rookie card, Brock Bowers, came in the mail today in time for the show. The irony. But man, even though this format here is 0.75 PPR, I think we're talking tonight, that's still close enough to full point PPR. There's Brock Bowers, and then there's the rest of that tight end. Trey McBride's maybe a close second, but I don't want anyone else. So there are some other guys worthy of a 101 here, but I could figure out my roster without them. We saw the value that slid a year ago in 2024. We know the value that would slide in a draft tonight or in startups this year. So give me Brock Bowers. His stats were just absolutely ridiculous. I know you have them here in the show notes, setting all kinds of records over 17 games. I mean, 153 targets to tight end. Holy cow. I got to check myself here. And then 127 receptions out of those 153 targets is beautiful. Rounding up 1,200 yards, 5 touchdowns. I believe that will go up with a real quarterback, to have that production with the Gardner Minshews and Aiden O'Connells of the world. And he was only a rookie. He's only going to get stronger. Now he knows what it takes to play in the National Football League. He showed durability last year. I can't say enough good. So I'll turn it back over to you, JB. He is my clear 101.
Yeah, tight end 2 at 15.5 points per game, just in typical PPR, not even incorporating the premium that we're discussing tonight. 248 PPR points over the course of the season. And it's always interesting when you see tight ends, especially the ones that garner a ton of targets. Like you said, Dan, 153 targets, 112 receptions. His touchdown rate at 4.5%. It's relatively low for a tight end. So it's not like he's a player that was just completely propped up by touchdown production. I think there's only room to grow. Mitch, you and I are taking part in a startup right now. He went 101. Now, granted, a little asterisk because there is more information required. there is a tight end premium, as well as you have to start 2 tight ends. And it's hard to argue in that situation.
It really is. It's taking a rookie tight end. Well, was a rookie, now he's a second-year player going in. It's tough to do the 101 overall in a startup because you just are missing out on probably the top 8 quarterbacks in that point because they're not going to come around to you to where you could probably get a Laporta on that second turn. But it's tough, man. Like, I get it. I don't mind Dan's pick here at all, to be honest with you, because with positional scarcity right now and how the tight end position is in the NFL, there's 4 good ones, and then we don't care about any other after that.
Yeah. So going there at the 101, Brock Bowers, he certainly, even in 2 PPR formats, he was a bargain throughout rookie drafts for the most part. Yeah, there's going to be some leagues, I'm sure people are going to chime into the comments and let us know that he went 102, 103, 104 in their drafts. And yeah, there was that wide range, but for the most part, a lot of the quarterbacks got propped up, the high-end wide receivers. And if you go back and just look at the discourse around Brock Bowers, it was, well, I don't love his situation. Well, he showed that it really doesn't matter what your situation is. So Dan taking Brock Bowers at 101. Mitch has graced me with the 102. What a gentleman. He's going last here.
I do what I can.
He just a gentleman. But anyway, Dan, you're going to leave me at the 102 with my 101, and it's Jayden Daniels. I mean, he coming in at quarterback 4, 22.5 points per game. That's in +4, -1 quarterback scoring. That was even elevated as the season progressed. And this is what we want to see from our quarterbacks. We want to see from our rookies, especially week 12 through 17, almost 31 points per game. He was getting better as the season went on. We saw what he did in the playoffs. Yeah, they certainly came up short against the Eagles there in the NFC Championship, but I don't know if we can sit there and point to Jayden Daniels being anywhere close to the problem for that team and what we just saw. 12-5 record. I know a lot of people, you get into the conversations, well, are wins a quarterback stat? Are they not? And it seems like you look at quarterbacks and yeah, they get pulled into that win discussion quite often, but almost 70% completion percentage, 5.2% touchdown rate, 25 touchdowns, 9 interceptions, sack rate below 10%, 148 carries, 891 yards, 6 touchdowns, 6 yards per attempt. The one thing that we'd like to see this improved on going forward is out of quarterbacks with 400 dropbacks, not just rookies, all quarterbacks with at least 400 dropbacks. I think the sample size was 23. He had the second highest pressure to sack rate. And we talk about that as a red flag, but he just gives you so much. He was leading the offense. Like, he just looked so poised throughout the season. Jayden Daniels, 102 for me. And I, especially once I heard Brock Bowers going 101, who Brock was my 102. So it's not like I'm scoffing there at that pick, Dan, but it made it very easy pick for me at 102 and Jayden Daniels.
Yeah, I would say I'll probably get blasted on the YouTube chat for it. I'm not telling all of America that Brock Bowers should be the number 1. He was just mine for the reasons of position scarcity that Mitch said. I love this fun game. He's my guy from Georgia. But Jayden Daniels, man, like, believe me, that was my pick either one. If I want to build my team around quarterback first and get my tight end later, man, Jayden Daniels is a home run pick there. And I think it's a Washington team that, in year 1 of Coach Dan Quinn, is still building that offensive line, is still building weapons. He did all that with really a team that, was well coached, but should only get better.
Yeah, a big thing is, even in startups right now, he's either the quarterback 2 or the quarterback 3 off the board. So that's how high his value has been. So that 102, picking him up, he was probably like, what, 104? Is that 103? What do we decide?
103.
Yeah, he was 103. So
on average,
the value you could have got from that pick and just being able to hit on that guy is so huge. And that's the great thing about the 24 draft is there's multiple guys that you could like. Towards the end, it gets a little rough. But, I mean, the first round was very, very strong.
And the way we're looking at this, it's what we saw in year 1, but then obviously how we're projecting beyond 2024 and into 25 and beyond. And that's the big thing here. So, obviously we're looking at it from a rookie draft perspective, redoing the 24 rookies, but from a startup perspective, like these guys were 1-2 off the board in our startup that we're taking part in. I took Josh Allen at 103 and Mitch cursed me. Like that's where we are with the hype in this historic class. So Mitch, I'm going to turn it over to you at 103. What are we looking at?
For anyone who's known me for a while knows what my pick is, but it's Drake Maye. The fact is, I believe, I know everyone loves
the YouTube comments ready.
No, because I know everyone loves Ben Johnson and Caleb. I like the coaching staff the Patriots have put together more. I have more faith in Mike Vrabel being a very good head coach. Faith there. Josh McDaniels, what he did with Mac Jones as a rookie was awesome. He had like 3,300 yards and 20-something touchdowns. Drake Maye gives you about 40 yards rushing a game. And so he's already giving you that. And then I believe that the Patriots are just going to end up building a better team around Drake Maye than what we're going to end up seeing with the Bears. I know their offensive line's kind of in shambles, but that's a franchise that I believe can get it right. And so I'm more than happy taking, probably more of a calculated risk in Maye.
Man, I want to check out that calculator because that risk might be a little too risky.
Dude, like I know what you were saying about Caleb Williams throughout the whole year. So don't come on here and trying to make the comments all attack me. There's
wait. Who's to say I was talking about Caleb at 103? Don't assume.
Although JB did warm up to Caleb, because I remember razzing him for his first half of the season talk on Caleb, and he seemed to shift a bit in the second half.
That's only because the comments killed him for it.
the comments, they've been flowing in. Hey, let us know what you guys think about this 103 pick here by Mitch Sorensen with his microphone that he bought, right? At the 103, Drake Maye. The one thing with Drake Maye, we saw it throughout the season. Yes, this team, there were issues. You talk about a win-loss record, didn't look great. But again, there was a lot going on in New England. You can look at the stats, the touchdown rate, interception rate, sack rate a little bit higher than what we saw from Jayden Daniels. He did give you some rushing production, which is obviously very nice to see. He had the highest pressure rate over expected. So 12.56% above what was expected. So some of that ties into him being able to get rid of the ball, but his time to pressure, it was the second fastest. So he is getting pressured almost immediately. The only quarterback that was faster than him was Tua, who is a quarterback known to get the ball out quickly. So it kind of offsets that. But then you have a quarterback like Drake Maye, who might rely on his quote unquote athleticism at times, callback there. But then one thing that, and this could be a product of what was around him, trying to play hero ball a little bit too much. Out of all the quarterbacks in this class, the three, Drake Maye, Caleb Williams, and Jayden Daniels, he was last in turnover-worthy plays. Still only 3.6%, but it is a noteworthy thing to look at. It was the highest. And I talked about with Jayden Daniels, we didn't get that super high ceiling from Drake Maye, but he did improve, as the season progressed. He was 14.4 points per game overall, +4, -1 scoring. But week 6 through 17, he was at 16.8. So it did elevate a little bit as we saw a little bit more Drake Maye. Yeah. All right. Well,
Dan, you're up.
Dan, 104. The board is wide open now because we got the maybe curveball of Drake Maye at the 103.
For our listeners, just so you know, like none of this is scripted. The three of us did not talk today and plan who we were going to talk about or where it's going to go. And I just feel like Mitch just set it up, man, for made for live TV here. I remember getting blasted about some of my concerns about Josh McDaniels on the X, about Maye, and then on our YouTube comments, this pick I'm going to make right now. I got blasted last week for my Jalen Hurts comparison. But, man, I think some of this is Dynasty, right? And we've got to project out. And anyone who's listed, how many episodes are we on tonight, JB? What number are we on? 276. So if you've listened to us for 276 episodes, we haven't hit on everything, but I think all three of our hit rates are pretty good. We've given our listeners some sound advice. We keep the receipts. We get our, busted when we're off. But I know Jalen Hurts is in the Super Bowl right now, and I'm not knocking on the guy, but I honestly think he's got an all-world O-line, an all-world running back, a stud defense, and is in the perfect situation now. And I think he's a very good quarterback, okay? But that's not going to go forever. How many Dynasty guys have we reviewed that 1, 2, 3 years, they looked great and something changed? It could change, ladies and gentlemen. So Caleb Williams, to me, in Dynasty would be more excited than taking Jalen Hurts. I would let someone else take Jalen Hurts and be so thrilled to get Caleb Williams. Now, he just got Ben Johnson, and I'm really
Dan
curious.
Can't even focus with the faces I'm making over here.
Oh, it's just my mind's in a million places, and I know you guys are
I love how you're doubling down on it. There's nothing wrong with that. If you have a take, just keep going.
Right? I have the conviction there. Was he glamorous this year? Did everything work out? No. But with a crap O-line, I'm trying to keep it PG here, a terrible coaching staff, the dude still threw for 3,500 yards, 20 touchdowns to 6 interceptions. I know you like Maye's rushing. He rushed for 489 yards. You bring in Ben Johnson. He's got talent around him. The coach in me, and I have coached college football, semi-pro football. I've coached guys that have gone some places. I love some of the things he does. My only nervousness is what's between the ears. As long as this kid truly knows how to work in the NFL and is the first one in, last one out, learns from Ben Johnson, I think the sky is the limit. As long as, I see it there. So he is the guy I would take here. I think your pick with Daniels before him, JB, was based on market value and the way things are trending. He was the right pick. I would love to have that pick of Daniels and then trade him and get Caleb and something else if the market is so hot for Daniels right now. I love his size in Caleb Williams. I love the magical throws he makes. I'm a believer. So he is my pick here. I think some things got to be cleaned up, but they brought in Ben Johnson to do just that.
I'm sorry. I would I've bashed on Caleb so much, but I did come to like him more as the season progressed. But then as the season progressed, he kept doing the same crap that he did at USC. And so I was buying in weeks 8 through 13. I was like, you know what? I could see something. And then you're watching him roll out and do a little jump for no reason. That highlight just sticks in my head. I really hope Ben Johnson is a good head coach. I always wonder about when offensive coordinators do become head coaches, when they're the hot name. We talked about it on previous episodes. Bobby Slovic was just as well liked as Ben Johnson was last year. And then he gets fired this year after one bad season as an OC. I'm not saying that's going to happen to Ben Johnson. I just do worry with these first-time head coaches if they live up to the billing or not.
I love that you say that, Mitch, because there's 2 points there. One is Caleb Williams, and that goes back to my point, what's between the ears? Because there were some games, it's all right, dude, learn to get rid of the ball, learn not to take a sack. Was that, being a rookie, was that not having the proper coaching? We'll find that out. And then, I don't know if you watched, Ben Johnson, he immediately went from, it seemed like there was, no sorrow over losing the biggest game of the year to, there was just this arrogant bravado in Chicago there. And so I am curious, this may not be as shiny as we think in a year. So there are some questions. Right now, I'm just in a gambling mood and I want to bet on that talent. But, again, for our listeners, hey, we all have guys we like and don't like. I love that Mitch could say, hey, these are the concerns I have of him. Here's, but he also noted, hey, there were some times where during the season, boy, he caught Mitch's eye and he saw it. So we'll see what happens. It's going to be a fun one to watch. JB, you're like the tiebreaker, man. What do you think?
I mean, you guys are just sitting here taking the quarterbacks after the one that should have been taken. Obviously, I'm not saying like you didn't have a chance at Jayden Daniels, but I'm just going to go to another position here altogether. And I would have done it.
I wonder who it's going to be.
I would have done it before Drake Maye, and I would have done it before Caleb Williams. But I might just take Tyrone Tracy right here, guys. We don't know.
I thought he was going to go off the board and go like Bub Means or something. I see that pit helmet in the back. I was a little worried.
Bub didn't hit IR this year for the Saints. That opportunity was prime for him, baby. But no, at 105, I'm going to go with the target garnering monster in Malik Nabers.
Oh, see, that actually surprised me. I thought you were going somewhere else. I had it already written down for you.
I think, Mitch, you'll get the other one that you may have thought I was going to take. But Malik Nabers, like you talk about, that's another guy that was knocked for his landing spot. And I'm not saying he necessarily slipped significantly because of it, but that was something that came up in a lot of discussions for people, similar to Brock Bowers. You look at Malik Nabers, wide receiver 6 at 18.3 points per game, 256 PPR points over the course of the season, 5 games over 20 points, 3 over 28, 100. You talk about the targets for Brock Bowers, and obviously just absolutely extraordinary because he's a tight end. But for Malik Nabers, 170 targets in 15 games, over 1,200 yards, 11 yards per reception, 7 touchdowns, a little over 6% touchdown rate. So there is room to grow there, similarly to the way we talked about Brock Bowers. There's a lot of similarities in these two in terms of their situation. They both should continue to improve, and you would hope that the situations from a quarterback perspective do get a little bit better. But for me, Malik Nabers, I expect it to continue. I would have had him as my 103, to be honest with you. I would have taken him above the quarterbacks. But again, like we're splitting hairs almost. Like when you look at Malik Nabers, you look at Caleb Williams, like I have Caleb and Drake Maye just a tier below him, but it's by the smallest of margins. So yeah, I'm going to go Malik Nabers 105. At this point, wide receiver 1 in the class.
I'm sad because that's who I was hoping to take because I thought you were going to take someone else above him. But look, I'm not going to blame anybody for taking either Malik Nabers or the guy. I'll just talk about him here. Brian Thomas Jr. To me, they're the exact same tier. I'm not going to blame anybody if they want to take him over one of the quarterbacks because with these quarterbacks, we still have to hope they're going to be good, right? We have to have like the conviction in them that the team is going to build right around them and everything's going to work out okay, and they're going to end up being rock solid top 12 quarterbacks in the league. Right now, Brian Thomas Jr., Malik Nabers, top 10 wide receivers, don't have to worry about it. There is no one coming into the NFL this upcoming season until sometime in September. If they have like a huge, like if Tet McMillan comes in and has a huge 4 or 5 week sample, then he could have a chance of hitting up where Brian Thomas and Malik Nabers are. But until that point, these guys are locked in. There is no movement one way or the other. It doesn't matter what happens with the team because they're already good. They've performed with absolute horrible quarterback play. So with these two, I love buying into these two guys. The only issue is if you're trying to trade for them, it's going to be nearly impossible because whoever has them loves them as well. And there's no reason to move off them.
I mean, honestly, for either of them, just again, there's a lot of gray area here, but just an easy frame of reference. Like it's probably going to cost 3 firsts in 12-team Superflex formats. Like if we're just looking at it from like let's say between 26 and 27, like I can't see either of them moving just for 2 picks at this point. And then obviously we get into a little bit more, but like I say, gray area because when you look at 25, you can start splitting it up into the early, mid, late. But yeah, it's like just 2 stud wide receivers, and I hate to be kind of give the cop out response, but I'm going to piggyback off of what Mitch said in terms of if somebody, and this was a conversation that happened in the Discord, the DD Discord, jump in, ddfantasyfootball.com, code theory, link is in the episode description below. But somebody had mentioned Brian Thomas. Why do I have a gap between Nabers and Thomas? I couldn't argue one way or the other, really. And I get it. I really do get it. So if there's a market inefficiency in your particular league, if going for Nabers or Thomas, if one of them can be a little bit more beneficial from a value perspective, that opens up a door there. All right, Dan, I'm sorry. You're ready to jump in.
I'm chomping at the bit here because to me, there is a tiebreaker between Brian Thomas and Malik Nabers. And I love that Mitch took Thomas. I mean, I was hoping he would take someone else because that's who I would have taken. And JB, as much as talent-wise, boy, does he pass the eye test. I get why you took Malik Nabers there, and he could easily be the number one wide receiver. But Thomas, statistically, boy, did he soar. And when you look at those two teams, I think the hiring of Liam Cohen is going to
absolutely
is going to stabilize things in Jacksonville there. We see what he did with Baker. To me, that just gives me so much more encouragement for Thomas now and moving forward, where Nabers, man, he is the definition of diva when you look up wide receiver and head case. And I don't see, I have my confidence level of the New York Giants is so low. I mean, as dysfunctional as my Cowboys are, and it was torture listening to the Jones family today. What
did Nabers do this year?
I'm running through my mind right now what Nabers has done.
Well, here's my thing. If we're just comparing them one for one in your draft, who do I take? Okay, I'm just thinking Thomas is a little bit of an uptick statistically, just a little bit.
No, the head case thing. The head case thing.
Oh, just he goes his body language, his comments here and there. There's just a little coach of me where he just rubs me the wrong way. Like when your team is facing adversity, the last thing I want to do is coddle this guy on the sidelines and kind of, smooth him over and make sure everything's okay and listening to him pout. I mean, things weren't easy in Jacksonville this year, and Brian Thomas just balled out, man. So next year, I don't see it getting much better for the Giants. I see him firing the coach and the GM after next year. And then it's a whole new offensive coordinator again, where he's learning a whole new system. Again, not saying he's not going to put up mega stats, not saying he's not great, not saying the Giants won't figure it out eventually. I would just rather the stability in Brian Thomas than whatever headaches might come from Malik Nabers getting even more ticked off because the Giants didn't figure it out 2 years in a row. Okay. So that's my take.
All right. And I'll tell you right now, you talk about YouTube comments that you've been getting, Dan. I'm interested to see what we get there. Hey,
Giants fans are going to hate me.
Any comment's a good comment, though. Am I right?
Yes.
I guess so. And that's not me hating on the Giants. It really isn't. Like I said, the quarterback coach was coached with me at Lackawanna College. One of their linemen was a lineman at Lackawanna College. I'm actually rooting for the Giants. It's just some concerns of instability. I mean, when you get rid of Barkley and you go on Hard Knocks and say, hey, we want to invest in Danny Dimes, that's why we're not investing in Saquon Barkley, you're just asking to be fired. So I regress. My pick here, though, if I have the 7th pick in the draft based on who went top 6, it's a tough one here because before, if we go back to last year, Marv Harrison was my guy. But for reasons that one of us will touch on when they take Marv Harrison, we'll get to it. I'm going to go with Bo Nix right here. It's super.
You son of a.
It is super flex. I see, 3 quarterbacks are off the board. And Denver Bronco fans, man, if you ask them right now, this is the closest they've felt to John Elway. 3,700 yards passing. He is not afraid to sling it. Despite not being afraid to sling it, 29 touchdowns, 12 interceptions. That's not too bad there. Hopefully he'll continue to, get a few less interceptions, and they put more talent around him. He could run a little bit too, 430 rushing yards, 4 rushing touchdowns. I like the direction Denver's going in. I think they put even more talent around Bo Nix, and I think he's, he could compete with those other guys that were just drafted before him.
You talk about poise, and I mentioned that with Jayden Daniels and the way he ran the offense. Bo Nix got off to a horrendous start to start his rookie season. And then we always talk about the baseline for these players coming in and where their baseline value was. Bo Nix was a little bit lower. He was certainly a divisive player. People had their mind made up on him before he was drafted. Certainly after he was drafted, a lot of people, they wanted nothing to do with him from a fantasy perspective. And that value started to plummet as the season kicked off because of how rough it was. And he picked it up, man. You talk about sack rate with these other guys. Bo Nix, he was at 4%. That's tremendous, especially for a rookie. Like you look at what he was able to do, and it's not like he's surrounded by all these weapons. You have Cortland Sutton. He made Devon Valley. I don't want to say a household name, but I think more than 5 people in the country know who he is now. Marvin Mims, Troy Franklin.
As a Utah Utes fan, I love how you said his name. It's awesome. I love it.
Devon Valley.
You're good.
I say Kamara, Jonu Smith. Those are my go-to names that I always butcher. But like Bo Nix, he was doing this, and you look at his numbers: quarterback 10 at 18.4 points per game. That was with a very rough start to the season. So I'm continuing. Again, it's hard to look at a class and say, "Hey, every player is going to improve," because that never happens. Mm-mm. But it's hard to look at these quarterbacks and think, okay, that player is really, seriously in jeopardy of regressing here in year 2. And sure, statistically, like some of these guys are going to, I don't want to say flounder, but they are going to regress a little bit. But Bo Nix, I think right now, Dan, at 107, if we were redrafting this, except for Jayden Daniels, because obviously I drafted him. But the other quarterbacks, I think Bo Nix at 107 is the best value at the quarterback position up to this point.
Yep, he seems to have a head on his shoulders. The moxie you talk about, he wasn't unfazed by anything, and he elevated that entire receiving court. And they didn't even have a tight end. So I'm really excited about their draft. And even their run game's not where they want it to be. So sometimes, one complements the other. The future does look bright.
Okay, let me ask both of you a question. So 107 for Bo Nix, I think is fair. I think it's, perfect market value. Are either of you taking a quarterback in the 2025
Absolutely
over
not.
the value of Bo Nix?
No, I'm going to take Bo Nix over Ashton Genty. Drop me some comments on that one. Let me know. Bo, and that was I got some backlash in the DD Discord over that. With my cross positional tiers, I have him tiered with the 101, and I mean, I'm not even. Mitch had to. I am not even. Forget about the Genty comment. I am not even thinking about taking Cam Ward, Shedeur Sanders, Jalen Milroe, Jackson Dart, whoever your favorite quarterback is, Dylan Gabriel, any of these guys over Bo Nix. Please and thank you. If that opportunity is on the table, I'm going to have to go, I don't know, maybe I'll go to, a nice furniture store and get myself a new table because I'm going to be breaking that table if that opportunity is on the table. Okay.
Okay. Dan?
Yeah, I struggle with the Genty comment there just because he reminds me.
No, take that one out. Just any quarterback the 25 draft over Bo Nix.
Yeah, no, I'm Bo Nix. He showed me enough of what I've seen statistically with the talent that he had. I've always been a Sean Payton believer because, again, these quarterbacks coming in, not only do they have questions as far as, their draft evaluation, they weren't projected to be better than J.J. McCarthy last year. So that's concerning. And, hey, Nix's landing spot's good. We don't know where these guys are landing. Too much risk for me. I'm with Bo Nix.
All right, let's get over to the 108, and there's not a lot of deep analysis with this one. And Dan, you mentioned, whoever takes Marvin Harrison, they're going to talk about it. And the fact that I can't really give you too many positives, but based on expectations, that's the thing. Like 60 receptions, 885 yards, 8 touchdowns, like that's fine. And typically, if you look historically at first and second round wide receivers, typically right around that 9 points per game in PPR settings is what will maintain their value. The issue with Marvin Harrison was that expectation was so high, but he's still going at early third in Superflex startups right now. And you go through his numbers, like they're not, touchdowns apart, like aside, they're not that much different than Rome Odunze. Like, and there is a fairly large gap between those two right now, but it comes down to that value coming into their rookie season. So again, I don't really have too much here, guys. I just, he has the pedigree, he has the profile. I don't want to say banking, but I'm really hoping on that rapport to further develop with Marvin Harrison and Kyler Murray, and whatever they got to do to figure it out, take care of it. Okay. So Marvin Harrison, 108, probably the biggest faller at this point, who, many had him at 102, so give me Marv, 108.
I was gonna say, I love the Marv pick at 108. Like, I love Marv Harrison. That's why I love the pick at 108. I'm a pedigree guy. His dad was a Hall of Famer. I think his just football IQ and work ethic and athleticism, it's all off the charts. But we went into this year, if we go back to the beginning of, Dynasty Theory, looking ahead at 2024, I think we were all hoping, and I know Mitch and I have been really critical on Kyler Murray in the past, but I think we were all kind of a little bit different kind of hopeful. McBride rising, the coaching staff, they draft Marv. But, man, I feel like they squeezed as much as they could out of Kyler last year, and he was still like the 14th quarterback overall with his rushing ability. I watched so many of those games, rooting for Marv, rooting for McBride in fantasy. And I was just very underwhelmed with Kyler at times and that offense. Like, it's just like so vanilla. And I think just coaching staffs are going to figure him out another year. I do think Marvin Kyler will work all offseason. But I just feel like that ceiling is just capped by Kyler Murray in that offense. So I think he'll get better, but not enough better to warrant anything more, probably, JB, than where you picked him right here.
And unless something changes, Mitch, you specifically talked about this countless times throughout the season. Unless something really changes, Marvin Harrison's not going to be one of those hyper-targeted players.
Nope, just not.
He's going to be the guy that's going to have to be extremely efficient with his opportunities, have to have big play potential. And again, eight touchdowns, over 12% touchdown rate, that's on the high side, but that shows you what he can do. I just want to see a few more opportunities. And you talk about body language, I want to see him be fully engaged, because there's times that Kyler misses a wide open Marvin Harrison, like he's not even looking over there, and you can see, like, okay,
no, I get it. Look, Kyler won't force feed him. Kyler's come out and said that he won't force feed him. So when you're talking about these upper echelon wide receivers, you kind of want there to be a Jared Goff and Amon-Ra St. Brown to where he's going up and like, dude, throw me the ball. And Goff being like, all right, I'm going to throw you a ball. Kyler's like, look, if it's not in the play, it's not in the play, man. It's like, dude, like, I don't like that at all.
Yeah. Right. That Arizona coaching staff's got to be scratching their heads thinking, like, how do we get more out of this? Like, they got a really tough challenge there in Arizona.
But luckily for me, you took Marvin Harrison, so I don't even have to feel bad. And I get Lad McConkey, who has a very strong chance of being right around that wide receiver, probably top 12. I think top 12 is fair by the end of the 25 season. I think he is just going to continue to do better with Justin Herbert. The big thing for him, why he's not listed there now, is like what John said, with some of these prospects, they're just liked a little bit less coming in. And so it takes a little longer for them to get hyped up. But, if we liked Lad McConkey just as much as we liked Brian Thomas Jr. coming into the draft, then all of a sudden he'd already be top 10, top 11. But that's just not how it works in Dynasty. And we talk about it all the time, to where this is where you could still get a Lad McConkey for a really good price, because people aren't valuing him where I think they should be. To me, he's a top 12 guy, more than happy paying it. In startups, he's actually going really high. So this 109 value, it's kind of there. But startups, he's going already end of the second, beginning of the third. And so there he has the value. But I do think in established leagues, you could probably not have to pay the Brian Thomas Jr. cost to get someone that's pretty close to Brian Thomas Jr., in my opinion.
Yeah.
Yeah. You fell into that one, man. And like, got to watch a lot of Lad this year, and we talked in the past durability, little concern. He only missed one game, man. Like I said, he got hit hard in some games. He might have came out for a few plays, but he always bounced back and came in. But his route running, football IQ, it really translated this year. He put up great stats, and I think he's going to get a year stronger. I think Coach Harbaugh is going to get that running game even better. They're going to put some more talent around him. But wow, was he explosive and could take one to the house at any point. So, Lad, man, to your point, Mitch, he's kind of still a little bit underrated. He's a gem.
Yeah, the big play potential and really the touchdown upside kind of surprised me a little bit. And he was one of those guys coming in, like from an analytical perspective, when you look at all the market share numbers and the college dominator breakout age, receiving yards per team pass attempt, all that good stuff, he didn't really check a lot of the boxes from an analytical perspective. And that was a little bit of a blind spot for me pre-season. And even early in the season, Mitch, you were out on X. You were spreading the good word on Lad McConkey.
I was about throwing the Trinity out there, man. I was like, if you just follow the Trinity, you'll be okay. But whether people did or not, I don't know.
Yeah, the Trinity score, again, available at ddfantasyfootball.com. Use code THEORY. Click the link below. Check it out. First month, 50% off. I think you'll enjoy it. All right, so that brings us to 110. Last pick for all of us, and then we'll just very quickly run through any honorable mentions. So, Dan, 110, who do you got?
Last pick. Now is when it really does get difficult. There's a couple other guys that are tempting. Maybe I regret. Maybe someone of our listeners or you gentlemen would have liked someone else before this pick. But again, it's super flex. And I need a quarterback. And this guy last year, with all the uncertainty of the world, was still going 111, 112, sometimes higher. So here at 110, but guaranteed a starting job, is Michael Penix. Atlanta was willing to bench $100 million investment and just let it sit and say, hey, we're ready for Penix right now in season. They sat Kirk Cousins. And the only reason he's not higher is because he doesn't run. And I was kind of hoping for some running, and I didn't see any of it. But
he had 7 carries for 11 yards in his 3 starts.
Yeah, he had 7. He did, and there was chances to run too. I'm like, kid, run, will you? I got you in DraftKings at a very low value here, and you're not running. But he had poise. He looked like totally unfazed of being a rookie. He's got some talent around him. He kept Atlanta, in contention late in the year there. And I think, give him a full offseason, and he's got an all-world running back, a Pro Bowl wide receiver. They'll get some more talent around him. I love Michael Penix at this point.
This, to me, the question I asked you about Bo Nix and the 25 draft class, this is where I am with Michael Penix. I think Michael Penix or Sanders, Michael Penix or Cam Ward, pick who you like in that situation. Yeah. But that's kind of where I value the guys coming in to compare to like the quarterbacks in the 24 class.
And that's how strong it is. I mean, and we see how quickly things can change with these quarterbacks. Like you go back to that Trevor Lawrence class. Everybody was head over heels for that class, and then things started to fall apart. But again, the rookie numbers here for these quarterbacks, I think it's certainly a little bit more promising, especially at the top compared to what we saw year one from a lot of the rookies in that Trevor Lawrence class. I'm just going to get right into 111 because it's very similar to the general idea. Give me the quarterback in Superflex, especially at 111 here. There are question marks. We don't know if he's going to start in 25 because of the Sam Darnold situation. And how do the Minnesota Vikings handle that? But at 111, guys, I'm going to go JJ McCarthy. And it's really a bet on Kevin O'Connell to make anybody look good in that offense. It was trending in the direction, in my opinion, that Sam Darnold was maybe be franchise tag, maybe get like a 2-year extension, something to remain in Minnesota. But the way it played out at the end of the season, I think it opens the door for JJ McCarthy. Now, you see these blurbs about JJ McCarthy looking super skinny. You see these blurbs about having to get the knee cleaned out a little bit. But again, at 111, it's worth the risk. to get a quarterback that really could elevate themselves in value here. Like there's an opportunity that JJ McCarthy, the range of outcomes is very wide, but I think he could be in that discussion with Bo Nix, Caleb Williams, Drake Maye in a year's time. Now, could he also be in a situation where he hasn't played a snap? That's also a possibility. But at this point, I'm willing to risk it. So give me JJ McCarthy here at the 111.
That's a great risk tied to, a quarterback guru and the greatest, wide receiver on the planet and then JJ. And then you got just a great fantasy offense around him. So you might have to be a little patient, JB, if Sam Darnold, if they bring him in just as insurance. But boy, what a great gamble at this point.
Well, that's the thing too. I know we're not talking about trades and where these guys compare to necessarily rookie picks or veterans, but if they do anything with Sam Darnold, like, yes, it could be technically a Trey Lance situation where we just never see JJ McCarthy. But if you believe in him, if you believe in Kevin O'Connell and something, Sam Darnold gets a franchise tag or, 2-year extension, whatever the case may be, the price of JJ McCarthy, it's going to get even lower and it's going to be even more attainable. So it might be something that you could get done in a lot of situations, depending on, roster construction and what the manager that currently has him might be looking to do. Mitch, bring us home, baby. 112.
And this is the hardest pick there is for me because I think there's 3 guys that are viable here. You could go Rome Odunze. You could go Xavier Worthy, who I think is really starting to click with Mahomes. The more the playoffs go on, like once they get out of that cold weather, they get down to New Orleans, I think Xavier Worthy is going to have a huge Super Bowl. And then you have everyone's favorite one running back right now in Bucky Irving. Like, I don't have that huge value in Bucky Irving. I like him. I just don't like him. I think he's running back 6 right now or 7. And that's tough for me. Like, I have a hard time putting that value on him with all the backs that are coming in. But I'm going to have to go with Rome Odunze because we knew this year was going to happen. We knew everyone talked about it. Like, even at the draft last year, all through the offseason is like, hey, it's going to take a year for this to work because of Keenan Allen, because of DJ Moore, because Caleb's a rookie.
Seattle was the comparison.
Yeah, Seattle was the comparison. Exactly. And we saw what happened with JSN this past year. It even took like 3 games this season for him to finally take off, but it happened. I'm just not willing to bet against that talent because to me, as a prospect coming in, he was just a quarter step below Malik Nabers. Like, he was right there for me on how good he was. And so I'm just going to have to go with Rome Odunze here, even though I don't think he's been a better pro than what Bucky Irving or Xavier Worthy has so far.
So I'll play devil's advocate more so with Bucky Irving and Xavier Worthy, and I can't believe I'm playing devil's advocate on the side of Xavier Worthy against
Good for
Mitch.
you.
I never thought I'd live to see the day. But Bucky Irving first. I know there's a lot of good running backs coming out. We talk about how deep this class is, but maybe because they also have Rashad White, they don't lean heavily into, hey, let's take a running back.
Oh, I don't think they're going to take a running back. I'm just saying as far as where he's ranked in Dynasty, I think he's going to get pushed down just by the plethora of good landing spots we have in the NFL. Sorry, I should have said that a little bit better.
No. But that clarification, I think, is good for everybody. It's certainly good for me because I misinterpreted. But like Bucky Irving, though, just a few numbers on him, and he was going overall in the 3rd round.
Yeah.
Like on average. Yeah, you were getting leagues where he got bumped up into the 2nd. Michael Penix, he was going around 205. Lad McConkey, he was going 201. But Bucky Irving, over 1,100 rushing yards, 8 touchdowns, 52 targets, 47 receptions. It took him a while to get going, but he went from 14 3 per game. If you look at the whole season, week 6 through 17, he was at 17 PPR points per game, which was good enough for a running back 10 on a per game basis. I know Dan does not like per game basis, but I'm hitting you with it. Another callback there. 50% of his team carries inside the 5. So despite, his size, he was still getting involved when we get into those close goal to go situations. And he was one of the better running backs when it comes to stuff rate. He was at 40%. Chuba, Kyron, Henry, Gibbs, and Bijan were backs that were better than him. And that kind of shows you the caliber of where he is and the company he keeps. And he was third in missed tackles forced per attempt, only behind Kenneth Walker and James Conner. And I believe the filter high on that was maybe 100 rush attempts or something. But so that's my spiel on Bucky Irving. And then Xavier Worthy, just the utilization and just so dynamic, and the rushing ability and the big play potential. But with that said, on Xavier Worthy, I still have him one tier below Rome Odunze, but it is somebody worth mentioning there if you're going to be looking at like 201, 202 in this class.
Fully agree,
Dan,
man. I was just going to say, so I was talking about like the first round is awesome. If we had to do a second round, I'd want to stop at the 204 because there's not that many guys I want to pick. Like this is where we had like Xavier Leggett and Ricky Pearsall getting drafted, and now put a value.
I actually think Pearsall right now would be right around there again.
Yeah, he would, because there's no one else to pick.
But also the way he came on at the end of the season.
Sure. Sure.
Dude, he got shot.
I'm not hating on the guy. I'm just saying, like, okay.
But we could throw Keon Coleman in the mix there, Tyrone Tracy. I think by default, Benson would still float around middle of the second. But Dan, did we leave anybody else off here?
We did, man.
Into consideration.
We did. I have no disagreements with anything you or Mitch said there. Rome, Worthy, Bucky, Tyrone. I can make a case for all of them. Like them all good. The two guys, you had two guys as your honorable mention list in our show notes, and you mentioned them here. We all know about Brooks and his injury, so there's nothing to talk about there. Keon Coleman, I want to talk about because I have a receiver I like a lot more than Keon Coleman right now. And I don't know if I want to get into Buffalo maybe until my final thoughts, or I get into now, but Jalen McMillan, boys. Like when he got an opportunity, and like Mike Evans isn't getting any younger, Chris Godwin's coming off another injury. All of a sudden they need him, and he gets his chance, and it's 4 for 59, 2 touchdowns, 5 for 75 and a touchdown, 5 for 57 and a touchdown, 5 for 51 and 2 touchdowns. That's a nice, strong finish when the opportunity presented itself. And, he had some good hype coming out of Washington. There was a lot of high praise for him, 3rd round pick. So to me, I just think he's like the sleeper of this class that, hey, is he better, or at least in the class, and he's not getting talked about with the Pearsalls and the Legetts and the Colemans. And Coleman, I think there's something fundamentally wrong in Buffalo. And I don't know if you want me to let me save that for the final thoughts.
All right, so that's our top 12 with some honorable mentions. Let us know in the comments who was too high, who was too low, who maybe we missed out on altogether. And I know we're going to get some thoughts on some of these players, especially my Bo Nix Ashton Genty comment, maybe something on Drake Maye, and then the head case that is Malik Nabers. Gentlemen, for the 276th time, before we get into the Buffalo dysfunction, but whatever Dan wants to talk about, Mitch, lead us off here. Final thoughts. What do you got for our DT Weekly listeners?
I'm just going to say I've seen a lot of talk in the Discord and on X and on the YouTube comments to where, be willing to adjust your rookie rankings when it comes to league settings. I see a lot of comments on various platforms to where like, hey, no, these are my rankings. Those are your rankings, great for like a 12-team super flex, but if you're bringing in 2 tight ends or a tight end premium or even half-point PPR compared to full-point PPR, those are huge changes that you have to know and allocate for within leagues. And if you're not doing that, like you are behind the 8 ball over teams that are doing it already. So I just wanted to make sure that everyone just like has a heads up on how much it does really matter at the end of the day.
I think it's popped up on every single mock draft we've taken part in, and the rest of the team's taken part in here on the DD Fantasy Football YouTube channel. So I think that's a good call out because, everybody's looking for confirmation bias. Nobody wants to be, wrong necessarily. And nobody really wants to adjust whatever the situation calls for it. And I think that's something that is a critical piece to the Dynasty game, and to find, longer term success while playing it. All right, Dan, how much time do we need for this final thought?
I will be brief, but for our Buffalo Bill fans out there, if you could maybe leave some comments on the YouTube after this for the Joe Brady truthers, like something is fundamentally wrong in Buffalo. And I am starting to think, I see that Josh Allen Funko, man, and he's not the problem. He is still all world. I love him. But let's think about this. We were talking about these rookies tonight, and Keon Coleman was in the honorable mention list. And for the Keon Coleman truthers, I don't know if this is a Keon Coleman issue. I don't know if this is a Joe Brady issue, and that's what I want to bring up. So they have an all-world quarterback. They have a Pro Bowl running back. When you have those two together, you should not have to worry about wide receivers. Now, Josh Allen was kind enough. Him and Puka, they won me about $8K 1 week in DraftKings. And like everyone else playing these games, you always have Josh Allen in your player pool. But we like stacks. So you try to figure out, hey, which receivers are going to be? So we got our rookie stud, Keon Coleman. We got our rookie or second year now stud, Dalton Kincaid. You trade for Pro Bowler star Amari Cooper. You paid $9 million for Curtis Samuel. They all suck. They are all just absolutely terrible. And I heard one NFL general manager said, hey, to beat the Chiefs, and we know all of America's rooting for the Chiefs to fall. They're like, you got to score 30 points to beat the Chiefs. So here's this all-world game, and we got a great championship game this past weekend. And the Bills, with all-world Josh Allen and amazing James Cook, could not put up 30 and beat the Chiefs. Why can't Keon Coleman step up? Why can't Amari Cooper step up? Why can't Dalton Kincaid step up? And it's not that they're watered down and they don't have a quarterback that can't support receivers. Something is fundamentally wrong that Joe Brady cannot figure this out. Now, no teams waited for Joe Brady in their coaching search. New Orleans Saints, as of the time of this recording, is the only team left that maybe might want him. But I think the Bills and fantasy football players who have a Bills receiver or tight end really have a problem going into next year. So that's my rant. I love Buffalo. Buffalo Bill fans, don't be mad at me. I was rooting for them, but something is fundamentally wrong where Joe Brady's this offensive guru. I think there's something I would be concerned if I'm a Buffalo Bills fan.
That was one of the most passionate rants we've ever had in 276 episodes. You could feel it. You could feel it.
It's pent-up fantasy frustration there. From all the Kincaid shares to all the DraftKings lineups to all my Amari Cooper shares to I know people are wondering about Keon Coleman, so we're trying to have some good analysis here in Dynasty Theory. And they can't get a football from an all-world quarterback.
Dan is so disgusted right now. Well, if you made it through the entire show, we thank you. You might have seen the best part of the episode there with the Dan Lamagna Buffalo rant. Make sure you hit like, you hit subscribe, you check out the additional comment at ddfantasyfootball.com and use code Theory. Click the link below in the episode description. And we hope to continue these conversations in the Discord with you. For Mitch Sorensen, Dan Lamagna, I'm John Bauer. We'll catch everybody next week. Peace.